Have you ever failed at something and felt like a failure? Now, get to the end of that question. Don't answer it before I end it. Have you ever failed at something and felt like a failure? Well, you know what? I don't think failing and failure should necessarily be connected. We can fail and find ways to take that path and succeed. We can take things that we think we have messed up or gone down a wrong path, and we can use those for great victories in our areas of leadership, particularly in our churches. My name is Tom Rayner. This is the Church Answers podcast. My co-podcaster, Jess Rayner, is on vacation, so I'm taking the opportunity to take 4 episodes, 2 this week, 2 next week, and talk about someone you rarely hear talked about in church circles. And really, you don't hear talked about much in other places unless you're looking at the history of innovation or something of that ilk. And that is the person Thomas Edison. I mentioned in the previous episode how I admire the man, and I have been chastised at times. Hey, he wasn't very nice to his family. I mean, he stayed in his lab all the time, and he did not spend much time with his wife and his first set of children. As a matter of fact, many people even believe that her depression, his first wife's depression, contributed to her death at the very young age of 29. I don't know if that is a fact, but of course, Edison gets the blame for that. And I'm not suggesting that he is not to blame. He remarried 2 to 3 years later. That marriage was with a lady that was more complementary to his inventing type of behavior, and she integrated herself into his life a little bit more. And so the marriage lasted until his death, and he lived a long life. I mean, when you think about someone, his birth years are, let me get them right in front of me. He was born February 11th, 1847. He died October 18th, 1931. He died at age 84. And when you're looking at someone who died in the 1930s at age 84, that'd be the equivalent of someone living to about 105 today. So he had a long life. He had a fruitful life. He had a beneficial life. He had his own challenges. He was very hard of hearing, could not hear in one ear at all, weak in the other, and different explanations: childhood disease, accident. I even saw one explanation that a train conductor pulled him up by the ears. I'm not sure what that would have done, but no one is certain why he did not have good hearing. But as a result, he celebrated it because he said, it causes me to focus. I don't hear other things that people hear. I just really focus on one thing at a time. He dropped out of school at a young age. Different explanations there. One explanation was that he was just bored. Another one was that he was so far ahead of everybody else that I guess I'd go right along with boring, that it wasn't much need of his being here. So he dropped out in what we would equivalent is elementary school, and his mother, we would call the equivalent of homeschooled him. And she was a former school teacher, and she taught him a lot of things. And she obviously had a brilliant mind and contributed to his brilliant mind. I mentioned in the previous episode that he had so many inventions, over almost 1,100 inventions. The number, I've seen 2 of them, 1,093 and 1,043. I don't know which of those sources is right, so I'll put them both out there. It's amazing when you go back and read things about the life of Edison, how things are close but not always identical. But over 1,000. And then when you look at that, those are U.S. patents. When you look at his worldwide patents, his global patents, which included Great Britain, Germany, France, and other countries, over 1,500. In a world where if you have one patent in your entire lifetime, you're considered an eminent success because you've come up with an idea that the U.S. Patent Office and other global offices have deemed that you are incredibly smart and you have something that nobody else has. If you do one, you're considered a success. Well, he did almost 1,100 in the United States alone. We don't study much about the life of Thomas Edison from a leadership point of view. We want to focus on his entrepreneurship, understand. We want to focus on the nature of his inventions like the light bulb, the phonograph, the motion picture viewer. By the way, do you know what his first motion picture viewer was? I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. I actually remember them, not because not because they were new when I was a kid, but I remember actually looking at them. There were these little devices where you would put a penny in and you'd turn a crank and it would have a movie, but only you could look in it. You had to lean over and look at it, kind of like putting goggles on without the physical goggles. And that was among the first motion pictures. That's how he commercialized it. That's how he monetized it. By the way, he was pretty good at monetizing things too, very successful in that area. So when we think of Thomas Edison, we do think of entrepreneurship. We do think about all the inventions. We may be thinking about the light bulb in particular and all the times that he tried to get the light bulb right. But we need to focus on his leadership. And we need to understand that his leadership is focused on by his understanding that failure is not final. And we'll talk about that. I've talked about it so many times how Steve Chaney is this entrepreneur in the accounting bookkeeping world. And I've talked about so many times how we recommend him because he understands the church. But I just want to say it again, like I did in the previous episode. One of the reasons we recommend him is because he's always thinking outside the box that it's a good way for the church. So I hope you will set up an appointment with Chaney and Associates. Just go to ChaneyAssociates.com, ChaneyAssociates.com/church answers. Okay, let's talk about Thomas Edison on leadership, how failures succeed. How failures succeed. Keep in mind, Edison did not see a failed experiment as a failure. He saw it as a step toward success. How many times have we had in our ministry something that did not work out and we think we're a failure? Well, in his mind, it was not that was not the case. Let me just give you one reason why. He called it the power of elimination. Every time he failed at something, every time an experiment did not work, it meant that he didn't have to go back and try that again. He would try something new. To my best knowledge, and I could be corrected on this, but from all that I've read about Edison, the most failures he had was on the light bulb filament. He sought all types of material to get the filament just right. He needed something that would burn a long time and not just burn out. He eventually understood that he needed to put in a vacuum or the light bulb, but even then he had to find the perfect, and by I mean perfect, something that could burn a long time, the perfect filament. And he ended up finding more than one, but that's how the light bulb came to be successful today. When you hold up a light bulb today and you see the little filament in there, that's still what Thomas Edison invented over a century ago. It's absolutely amazing the long life he had. So number one, he saw failure as a success because it eliminated something that wouldn't work. He didn't have to try that again. It was a matter of elimination. It wasn't a matter of failure to him. Another reason, second reason that he really liked failure. And the more I read about him, I don't think it was pretense. It's just he liked failure. The second reason was it was proof of his effort. Every time he failed at something, he was able to log it in. And he was able to say, we tried. And he may have tried it 3 or 4 times before he deemed that did not work. But it was proof of effort. It was proof that he tried something. It was proof that he did something. Apply that to your leadership today. How many times do we not lead because we don't try to lead? How many times do we avoid failure and in doing so avoid opportunities? I know you've heard the story that Babe Ruth struck out a lot more than he hit home runs, but Edison is even more profound than that. He struck out metaphorically thousands of times before he would hit a home run. But every time he struck out, every time something did not work, it was a proof of effort. It was a proof that he had tried something. And yes, he wanted success, and he wanted the ultimately the invention to become a reality that he was striving for. But he was happy to say, I tried this, and it didn't work. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Hey, let me move on to another next one. That's not a very good segue, but I'll try it anyway. When we talk about organizations that keep on trying different ways of doing ministry, Upward is the best, definitely one of the best. And they they came around several decades ago, and they started with basketball, but they've gone to cheerleading, soccer, flag football, volleyball, baseball, and now they've got pickleball, and they've got running. They've got all of these sports, and so do this for me. Go to upward.org/church answers, set up an appointment with them, and they have a few of them left. You can get a pickleball net set. I always have to pause to make sure I get that exactly right. A pickleball net set that they're giving to 200 customers or 200 inquiries. Just go and talk to them and find out how one of their sports can make an impact in your community through your church. You can reach your community through these sports leagues. We're seeing it more and more and more. Give it a shot. Try pickleball, try running, but go to upward.org/church answers. So we're talking about Thomas Edison. We're talking about his leadership. And now we're talking about how he saw failures as success. In other words, for him, failures were not final, to use the cliche. They were just a step in another direction. And here's one other thing he said. We talked about the power of elimination. Secondly, we talked about the proof of effort. But what he liked about these failures is what he called innovation surprises. He would have never gone to the next one unless he had a failure with the previous one. And when he went to the next one, whatever that one was, he would often find things that he never expected to find. And he loved those innovation surprises where he would be going in one direction, but as a result, ended up going in another direction, even with greater fruit. And think about that in your ministry. You may try something and it doesn't go exactly as planned, but because you're going to push on as a leader, you're going to ultimately say, that didn't work, but I was really surprised at some things that did work. That's what Edison called innovation surprises. And basically, this whole growth mindset of Edison, this whole idea of who he was and what he was doing, was based upon the fact that he just kept on trying. And when you look at the number of patents that Edison has, over 1,000, nearly 1,100, over 1,500 globally, and you look at how many successes he has, at least as measured by those patents, you can multiply that by 100 and get the number of times he tried. And so 1,000 patents were conceived or successful by 100,000 failures. How many people would be willing to fail like that? How many people would be willing to just keep on pushing on? Failure is not final. I know that's cliche, but I can't stop saying it. Failure is not final. So he looked at it as the power of eliminations first, the proof of effort, and then the innovation surprises that would often pop up as he continued to go in different directions. Now, this fourth one was Thomas Edison to a T. In case you're not keeping up, the first one was the power of elimination. The second one was the proof of effort. The third one was innovation surprises. The fourth one was this: the power of resilience. The power of resilience. My goodness. How many people would bounce back like Thomas Edison did? How many people would be willing to go to the next level when he had a failure at the previous level? How many people would not be disgusted, despondent, and say, I just can't keep on keeping on? How many people would be willing to keep on in the direction he kept on? He understood the power of resilience, and he did not give up. In many ways, Edison was to inventions and innovation as Churchill was to government and wartime leadership. I mean, by all accounts, World War II was not going well. And what did Churchill say as the Prime Minister of England? He said, "We will never, 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 ever give up." What did Edison say? I don't have a quote of this nature, but his actions would say, "We will never, ever, ever give up." Church leaders, church work is hard. I don't have to tell you that. It is wrought with criticisms. It is wrought with risk. It has all kind of personal feelings and humanity in it. But just hear me well. As you continue to push on, God is going to reward your resilience. One of my favorite biblical characters is Caleb. Caleb was one of the spies that went in the promised land and saw all the giants and the fortified cities, just like those who said, "We cannot take them." He was one of the two who said, "Yes, we can. We can go in there." And even though he had to wander in the promised land with the rest of the rebellious group, or at least their children and grandchildren, for 40 years, when it came time to enter the promised land, that old man was allowed to enter when he was 85 years old because he believed it. And I love what he said. There was one particular group that opposed Israel that he wanted to take out. They were on a mountain. And you know what he said at 85? "Give me that mountain. I'm ready to go." Well, Caleb is a fantastic example of resilience. Certainly, Thomas Edison is from an experiment point of view, from one who created point of view, from one who brought us new things that we still have today. He was resilient. And again, I don't know much about Edison's spiritual life. That should be kind of important for the Church Answers podcast. I'm focusing more upon his leadership. But from our point of view, think about this. We have the Holy Spirit who lives within us. We have God to guide us. And when we seek him to be our way, when we seek him to be our path, he may send us down a number of different paths. I like it when, now I don't necessarily like it, but I remember when Paul was on one of his missionary journeys, he said the Holy Spirit stopped us. Did Paul just say, "Okay, it's done"? No, he went another direction instead of the direction that they were headed. Some of you may be at a point of discouragement. Some of you may even be at the point of thinking about quitting. Hear me well. The life of Thomas Edison, at least this positive aspect of it, was one who did not look at failure as final, did not look at failure as true failure. He saw it as an opportunity to try something out. And as a result, he saw the power of elimination, number one. He was able to demonstrate a proof of effort, number two. Number three, he was able to show innovation surprises as he tried other things. And number four, he was resilient. He kept bouncing back again and again and again. Well, we've taken this first week, these 2 episodes, to talk about the life of Thomas Edison from a leadership point of view. We've talked about his growth mindset and how he did not let failures hinder him from moving to the next one. We're going to continue to talk about this life and this man and this incredible inventor next week, because we'll be returning and we'll be talking about, in fact, our next lesson on leadership from Edison will be next week. We'll be talking about the incredible lesson of managed chaos. That sounds like an oxymoron. I understand it, but I think you'll appreciate it when you get here. Once again, we always thank Cheney and Associates. Cheney and Associates, the accounting firm for the church. I've talked about how I love Cheney and Steve Cheney and his innovative mindset. I hope that you'll take the opportunity to go to his podcast called the Church Advisory Podcast. It's a good podcast. It's solid, and you'll hear not only the sound businessman and the ministry heart that Steve Cheney has, but you'll also hear some incredible lessons of leadership and finance for your church. It's an important podcast. It's one that I think that you need to listen to on a regular basis, and it's called the Church Advisory Podcast. I hope you are appreciating, maybe even enjoying, this series on Thomas Edison. He is one of my heroes of the business world, the secular world. Can't call him one of my heroes of the faith because I don't really know much about his spirituality. But I think as we together learn more about him, we can take some lessons from his life, some lessons from his tenacity, some lessons from how he just did not give up, but kept moving on for our lives as well. It's a fun study. We'll continue it as we continue to look at Thomas Edison on leadership in the next episode of the Church Answers podcast. See you then.